Mario and Luigi are finally back on a brand new adventure, and I couldn't be more excited about it. Mario and Luigi Brothership was announced in the recent Nintendo Direct, and there's a lot to learn about the game. So, of course, you know what that means. It's time we boot up the old analysis machine to see what secrets and hidden details we can find. But first, if you haven't already checked out our previous video covering over 14 secrets and big details in the game, make sure you do, as we'll be referencing it throughout the video. Now, without further ado, let's get to this analysis. Starting off, let's take a look at the premise of this adventure. Thanks to the European website, we know more about the main plot, which we can use to learn even more about the game. Set sail with Mario and Luigi on Ship-Shape Island, part ship, part island, and journey to the vast world of Concordia. So we have an official name for this ship, and can confirm that it is basically the main hub of the game. The brothers sail around the world on this ship, and use the cannon to reach each nearby island. Concordia is an interesting name for a world. Concord, by definition, means an agreement of harmony between people or groups. So perhaps it's called Concordia because these different islands making up the world have some sort of peace established between them. On the other hand, it also has chord in the name, likely due to the strong use of plugs, outlets, and chords as a main theme of the game. The website goes on to say, meet new friends along the way like Connie and Snoutlet, and encounter many faces from the Mushroom Kingdom, like Peach and Bowser, who may help you on your journey. Now, this is interesting, as Princess Peach doesn't appear to be kidnapped. It's not the premise to the game, at least. It could still happen later into the adventure, such as in Mario & Luigi Dream Team, which started off as a vacation. It's also worth noting that Bowser is listed as a familiar face who may help on your journey. But why? We all know Bowser wouldn't want to help the Mario Brothers unless he felt he had no other choice. And the even more interesting part of this is Bowser's role as a whole. In every Mario & Luigi game before this one, he has some sort of tie-in to the final boss. Is that not going to be the case this time as well? It's too early to say on that front, of course, but I'm willing to bet he's still going to be a threat in some fashion. So we know Mario and Luigi are traveling around Concordia, and that familiar faces may show up to help them. But why are they here in the first place? Well, the trailer opens with Mario rescuing Luigi before the two seemingly get sucked into a portal. There's also this clip in the trailer with the pair talking to Connie, who says it'd be great if there were a way to get you back home. And we can see from a screenshot in the same place that Snoutlet wants the brothers to work with them. So maybe the plan is for the brothers to search for a way back home while helping Snoutlet and Connie with something else entirely. And perhaps throughout the adventure, even more portals open up, eventually bringing Princess Peach and Bowser and his army to this world as well. But before we get more into it, can we take a moment to admire this art style? Brothership is the first fully 3D Mario & Luigi game, and it looks vibrant and gorgeous. We've known for over 10 years now that if the Mario & Luigi series ever went full 3D, it'd probably adapt the 2D art style used for promotional materials. We had small instances of this in the last 10 years with, say, the giant Luigi model in Dream Team. And now we can see that this is indeed the case. This game perfectly captures the 2D artwork of the Mario Brothers that we've grown accustomed to seeing with this series, even down to the shading style. Luigi has a bright green that transitions into a blue, while Mario has a bright red that transitions into a dark purple. The series has been known for its cartoony presentation, especially in the various character animations over the years, and we can see that applied here as well, now with 3D models, with the brothers undergoing all sorts of squash and stretch to exaggerate their models and push the expressive cartoony nature of it all. This may just be the most lively the series has ever looked, and maybe even the most expressive. We can even see some of their older sprite poses recreated, such as this clip with the brothers standing off against the extension core. Their battle-ready stances look just like how they did in previous games, especially Luigi's, and it's most clear if you compare his legs and hands. I can already sense the amount of charm that's going to come from this game's animations, and I wonder if there'll be even more references. We also see Princess Peach looking just like some of her 2D art from the series as well. In particular, she seems closest to her art for Mario & Luigi Partners in Time, or the Superstar Saga remake. Beyond recreating the 2D look, the game also sports a bright and vibrant cel-shaded art style. And the running visual themes we see throughout this world of Concordia, as we mentioned before, are plugs, outlets, and chords. So much of this game uses it in its imagery. Whether it's interactable objects for the brothers, background elements like balloons, or even different characters. And the characters are really well designed around this. So let's talk about them. Let's start with the new companion character, Snoutlet. At a glance, this little fella looks like a flying piggy bank, but quickly sets the record straight that they're not a pig. The yellow circle is actually the head, and these holes are eyes. We can see the eyes animate as Snoutlet floats around in this clip, and we can even see the eyebrows sitting above the face too. Snoutlet's face is, of course, meant to look like an outlet. The same can be said of Connie, with her eyes and open mouth resembling a traditional outlet for a 3-pronged plug, which she just so happens to be wearing on her head. As a hat? Or maybe it's part of her head, much like a toad? Regardless, we can see the 3 yellow prongs, and up top is a tied-off cable. We also see a few NPCs throughout the trailer, so let's take a closer look at them. This blue character next to Connie is dressed up like a sailor. Specifically, they're wearing a sailor's hat, and they have a telescope on their back. There's also this crew with Princess Peach on the dory. As we mentioned in an earlier video, they're all wearing some sort of bandana, some around their necks and some tied on their heads, while Peach wears hers around her wrist. The main 4 are also all very color-coded. There's a green one, pink one, orange one, and blue one. They all resemble outlets, and are wearing matching outfits with the same belt buckle. They kind of remind me of the Lynx from 4 Swords. In one clip of a town, we could see 5 different outlet NPCs. A tall green one that looks like it's wearing a suit, a smaller turquoise one, a small purple one sitting on the bench, a sad-looking red one, and this pink one, who looks to be the exact same one from the Princess Peach clip. Perhaps this is from before they joined their friends in Peach? Next, let's take a look at the main group of villains, the Extension Core. The center purple one is based on an audio splitter, with the main plug up top, and the rest of its limbs acting as the different split cables to plug into. The green one on the left might be based on a VGA cable, based on this pair of twisting locks up here. But this red one on the right, honestly, I'm not sure what kind of cable or extension this one is. So if you have an idea, let us know in the comments. And as something interesting, all 3 of these villains have eyes reminiscent of Phantasma from Dream Team, though I don't think they're actually related at all, and this is just to make them look more evil. We also get a look at a boss, Gorumbla, and he looks to be carrying a bunch of stones on his back. He also has large stone gauntlets on as well. But as for the design otherwise, it's very unique, and it vaguely reminds me of Boom Boom, at least in the head shape. But at the very least, it seems to be more of an NPC too since it talks, so it may be more than just a boss. Moving on, we get to see another villain shown in a pretty dark looking scene. They're wearing a long cloak and a spiky top hat. We can see a pair of red and green cables coming out of the top of the hat, and their face looks like a masquerade mask. But the biggest detail is this giant set of wire cutters attached to their character. Wire cutters would be pretty evil in a world made of cables and outlets, huh? Before we move on from characters though, let's take a look at the enemies found in battle. We've already talked about this enemy resembling a Thorb, and this one resembling a Trevel. But there are more enemies here than just those, like these small little boar enemies, which probably have a charging attack. There's also this blue plant-like enemy that's floating up in the air. It almost looks like an upside-down blue rose. In a fun little detail, its eyes get X's when it takes damage. In another screenshot, we can see a few more enemies. 2 of them that look like small cables, and 2 that look well defended. Although I actually think all 4 of these are the same enemy. The 2 on the left just lost their defensive shield. If you look at the legs, they all look the same. Back in the direct, we also see a little bit more footage. There's red versions of these plant-like enemies in a completely different location. And there's also some small chameleon enemies. These remind me a bit of the Coupelians from Partners in Time. Of course, we also have this plant boss seen at the end of the trailer. I can't say it really holds a candle to Petey Piranha, but anyway, it looks to be a pitcher plant with sharp vines as limbs. The symbol on its head looks like it's encouraging the brothers to jump on its head, but since it's a pitcher plant, I suspect it'll open up and trap the brother inside if they do. Now that we've been through a ton of characters, be it NPCs, villains, generic enemies, or bosses, can I just say how great it is to have this kind of character variety in a new Mario RPG again? These designs feel so inspired, and I'm loving what we've seen thus far. Alright, I think we've talked enough about the visuals and the design of the game. Let's get to the gameplay. Starting off, let's look at the Overworld gameplay. Running around the overworld seems to work just like in the last few entries that tried to be more 3D, only now actually fully 3D. The camera perspective also seems to change depending on the area. Usually it's pretty static, with a diagonal view from above, but now we see the camera moving around much more for different scenes, not even just in cutscenes either. Like usual, Mario runs up front with Luigi running behind him. They can jump individually with the A and B buttons, and the hammers seem to be tied to the X and Y buttons. We can also see boulders that can definitely be broken with the hammers. Next, let's talk about Bros moves, as they're called by the European website. The main Bros move we get a look at in this trailer has Mario and Luigi spin into a UFO shaped across large gaps. And there's definitely more Bros moves, but we'll come back to those soon. But before we move on, what about these other overworld actions? We see the brothers needing button prompts to work together to climb up ledges, like using high jump, or working together to jump up a cliff, almost like wall jumping. These feel like the sort of things that would be Bros moves, but could they just be other overworld actions? There's also this whole sequence of Luigi having an idea, followed by a whole minigame to open up these flowers to make a path. This feels less like a Bros move and more like a minigame segment, so it's probably a bit different. When solving certain puzzles, the brothers will need to split off from each other. When possible, we can see the location and Luigi both start to emit a circular glow. Luigi also gets an exclamation point over his head, and an L button prompt. Pressing L sends Luigi to stand at that point, allowing the puzzle to be solved. In some instances, if Luigi needs to interact with something such as a button with his hammer, a small screen appears in the corner to show Luigi's perspective. Taking a look at the main HUD to the game, we can see Mario and Luigi's HP and BP gauges down in the lower left. There's coins just up above, and some other form of currency above the coins. To the right, the R button seems to be tied to some sort of hint system. In this particular scene, we can see there's 14 of them, but in a different one, there's only 3. The ZR button is a golden pipe, which may bring up some sort of fast travel system, or perhaps warps the brothers back to Ship-Shape Island. The plus button is a small TV, which I assume is going to be to access the main menu. Perhaps this time around the menu's themed like a TV screen. So remember how we mentioned we may know more Bros moves? Well, for like a single frame, we can see the UFO Bro move is actually pulled up by some sort of radial menu. Up top, we see the standard jump action. On the right is the selected UFO. At the bottom looks a bit like a spinning ball, which reminds me of the Bros ball from Partners in Time. On the left is an empty slot, indicating something else can appear here in this action menu. Okay, now that we've talked a bunch about the overworld gameplay, let's get into battles. From this screenshot, we can get a good look at the general layout of battles. The Bros HP and BP are fully displayed in the bottom, now with numbers. And of course, actions are chosen by different command blocks. Jump, hammer, and items are the 3 that we can clearly see, but there's 3 more as well. One of these, most likely the purple one going off the past games, is the flee option. Another is for Bros attacks, which going off past games is likely the yellow one. That accounts for all of the usual battle actions. So the question is, what is this pink command block back here? Could it be something entirely new? Perhaps related, what are these pair of yellow outlets at the bottom of the screen? They're most likely some sort of unique mechanic for this game, and perhaps one of the command blocks is tied to them. Moving on, we can see both Mario and Luigi perform jump attacks in different clips. Rather than simply jumping twice on the enemy, the moves are a bit more involved now. Mario has the A action command to jump on the enemy, and upon hitting it, Luigi follows up with the B button to kick Mario higher into the air, and then Mario performs his second jump on the enemy. Luigi has the B button action command to jump on the enemy, then Mario follows up with the A button to leap into the air and launch Luigi higher up, and then Luigi performs his second jump on the enemy. Based on the numbers of the damage dealt to these enemies, we're pretty sure these are the new standard jump actions, and not Bros attacks. The same goes for the hammer attack we see. Mario charges up his hammer by pressing A with good timing. Luigi then does the same with the B button to send Mario spinning into the enemy. There doesn't seem to be a third action command here this time though. Based on the damage done here, it's likely later into the game, with the Bros both being a bit stronger. While it could be a Bros attack, the pair of Asha commands feel a bit too simple for that. So I think that this time around, as a show of brothership between the pair, pretty much every attack is going to have the brothers actively helping each other, even the standard jump and hammer moves. Also, during the hammer attack, we see a kaboom attack in action. Presumably, this is just any attack that has an AoE, with extra damage dealt to surrounding enemies. We also get a look at a pair of bros attacks in action, specifically the 3D red shell, where Mario and Luigi work together to kick the shell back and forth towards the enemy, though it seems to work a little differently than in past games. Rather than bouncing off the enemy with each kick, it looks like Mario and Luigi build power by kicking the shell specifically to each other, with only the final strike actually hitting the enemy. Thanks to screenshots, we can also see the 3D green shell in action. This very likely means that Mario and Luigi each have their own set of bros attacks to select, rather than one shared pool of them. Mario gets the red shell and Luigi gets the green shell, just like back in Dream Team. Bros attacks are also clearly more flashy than standard attacks. Seemingly, they'll always start with a nice high five from the bros, just like the Overworld bros moves. Before we wrap up this battle section, let's also talk about the defending action. We can see Mario and Luigi using the hammers against this member of the Extension Corps, needing to counterattack to send him back to avoid taking damage. We also see them jumping over shockwave attacks sent by Gorumbla, and thanks to the UI, we can confirm the emergency guard from later entries is back too. Okay, we're almost done here, but first, I'd like to point out a few notable details I found from looking through this trailer frame by frame quite a few times. First off, the point of the seesaw puzzle we've looked at seems to be to get this red fruit-like gemstone to this statue over here on the right. There's also this blue block up here, which I'm pretty sure rotates the seesaws to face different directions. Next, I know we've talked a lot about how this game is heavily designed around plugs and outlets, but did you notice just how prominent they are in this city? The windows in this building, every lamppost, heck, even each block of these buildings is technically another type of outlet. Next, while Mario and Luigi are climbing up this cliff, in the lower right, we can see the top of a red statue, which looks just like the one from the seesaw puzzle. So perhaps there are actually two of them here, and by bringing both gemstones, these plugs appear in the cliffside, allowing the brothers to climb up. Next, we can see a save block next to the cannon on Ship-Shape Island, which makes sense, allowing the player to save in the hub before leaving it to explore somewhere else. Speaking of going somewhere else, as Mario and Luigi fly towards this island, which may be the first proper island of the game based on the presentation we see here, on the right we can see an arc with Gorumbla's face on it. So Gorumbla is an early boss, and we can see exactly where he'll be fought. While Mario and Luigi prepare for a battle against the Extension Corps, we can see on the platform behind them is a warp block. It looks much like the warp blocks from Partners in Time. In that game, it would bring the brothers back together if they were ever separated. Could it be the same here? Or could it spawn a warp pipe back out from this factory area? Moving on, while Mario climbs up this tower, and Luigi waits down below to hit this button, there's a few details worth pointing out. First, the button likely spins these different walls around, or at least changes the doors that are open, since the whole thing looks like a large maze. And secondly, as Mario climbs up, we can see the draw distance for enemies and NPCs isn't all that good, as we can see all of them from down below just pop out of view. Maybe this will change by the time the game releases? It's hard to say. Finally, in the direct footage, as Mario and Luigi walk through this town, there's two things I want to point out. First, there's a strange glowing spot to the left here. Is this something the brothers can interact with? Maybe a hidden item or something? And second, we can see a small item shop. Well, we see the sign for the item shop, though we don't see any items laid out near this NPC. So, talking to the shopkeeper likely brings up a separate shop menu, just as it has in the past games. Whew, that was a lot to go through. But with that, that'll cover it for everything we could find in our in-depth analysis of Mario and Luigi Brothership. I am incredibly excited for this game, and it looks so good. Seriously, it's great to see this series finally go full 3D, with such a pleasant art style too. And you can bet that we'll be back with plenty more coverage as the game gets closer. So thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Mario and Luigi Brothership, and more from this recent Nintendo Direct. Until next time, farewell everyone.